Shall we get started? Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for this Mastering MTD for Income Tax with Xero webinar. My name's Kevin Flane. I'm one of the outsourcing partners here at Shaw Gibbs. We're here today to look at making tax digital for income tax, what the latest changes mean for businesses and landlords, and how Shaw Gibbs, in partnership with Xero, can help you stay compliant. Today's session is designed to give you some clarity, confidence, and some practical actions that you can take forward over the coming months. We will be recording today's session, so you can circle back to relevant points should you need to. And we've got some time at the end for Q&A session. Having said that, if you've got any questions as we're going along, you can just pop them in the chat and we'll make sure they're addressed either during or at the end of the session. I'll pass you on to, I think, Hannah now, just to introduce the team that are with you today before you hear from me again.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi there, everyone. My name's Hannah McDonald. I'm an outsourcing senior manager, and my role primarily is around the MTD service offering that we're going to be delivering. I have recently joined Shaw Gibbs, and I've had a lovely warm welcome joining the firm here. My experience is 15 years within accounting firms, supporting clients for new, for example, filing requirements, legislations that come up within the UK and also globally. So I have a lot of experience in MTD and this type of service that's currently happening. I'm just going to hand over now to Joanna just to introduce herself.
So I'm Jo. I run the Northampton outsourcing team. Been involved with the MTD process sort of from the start when we first met with Xero. So hopefully I'll be able to help and guide and give some advice.
Morning everyone. My name is Claire Palmer. I am partner consultant here at Xero. I've been at Xero for around 6.5 years, and before that I was an accountant in a practice, and I am looking forward to diving into Xero with you all this morning to show you how easy we can make MTD for income tax compliance easy for you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for that. Thanks, Remy. So just in a bit more detail, this is what we're going to be covering today. Some of you may already know through previous communications. Joe's going to start us off with a brief overview of making tax digital for income tax, and then look at the latest HMRC updates, who's affected, who's caught by this new legislation, the compliance requirements, and any important deadlines you need to be aware of. Joe's then going to pass you on to Claire, which is going to be the biggest part of this presentation, which is going to be a deep dive kind of into the Xero products and how you can achieve what you need to do. I think she's going to cover off briefly actually making the submissions. So that'll be really helpful. And then following that, I think Hannah's just going to jump in and kind of explain how we can help support you through this journey as Shaw Gibbs, what levels of support we can offer you, and then jump into the Q&A session so we can hopefully cover off everything you need. So over to you now, Jo.
Thank you. So what is making tax digital? So MTD is HMRC's initiative to replace a manual current tax process. So they're replacing it with a streamlined digital approach. So anyone affected must keep digital records using approved accounting software, such as Xero. Instead of one annual return, you're going to send 4 quarterly updates throughout the year. Each update must be submitted 1 month and 7 days after your quarter ends. However, you still will be expected to submit a final annual submission. HMRC have called this their final declaration. And this will still be by the 31st of January just as you do under current self-assessment rules now. So our next slide, who will be affected? So MTD applies to sole traders and landlords. So you are going to be required to join if your total self-employment and or your property gross income exceeds £50,000 in the 24-25 tax year. If you do meet this threshold, your MTD obligations do start as of the 6th of April 2026. So that's already passed, guys. Your first quarterly update will be due 7th of August 2026. So that is rapidly approaching, and preparation will be key. So you do need to ensure you have suitable software such as Xero, and you need to understand the new reporting cycle. So moving on to our next slide. Where are we now? So as I've said, MTD for income tax came into effect from 6th of April 2026 for those above that income threshold. Each individual must register for MTD before you can begin submitting anything. Registration is done through HMRC's online service, so you can do this yourself or we can provide that service for you. Software providers are updating their systems, and HMRC does continue to release guidance on this. And now is the ideal time to assess your income, choose your software, and get ready for some quarterly reporting. So I will hand you over to our Xero expert, Claire, to deep dive into the software.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Jo. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen now, and hopefully my slides will pop up. Great stuff. So hopefully everyone can see that now. So welcome everyone, and thank you once again for joining today. Now, this section of the webinar is really just designed to give you some practical guidance on how you can use Xero and those things that you can apply immediately. So I'm going to focus on how you can use Xero to record transactions and maintain digital records. This is not intended to be like a full accounting masterclass today. It's instead showing you how using Xero can make your life easier, reduce admin, as well as ultimately being compliant under MTD for income tax. Kevin mentioned it at the start of the webinar, but if you have any questions that come to mind throughout my section that I'll be covering, then please do look at your toolbar at the top of your screen there, and be able to post those questions into the Q&A. And so they will be picked up either throughout the content by the Shaw Gibbs team joining today, or we will actually have a Q&A section at the end as well to pick up any remaining questions. So please do pop them in there. So before I show you Xero, I really want to start with some three sort of practical tips or recommendations that can make achieving your obligations under Making Tax Digital much easier. These aren't in any way mandatory requirements, but they are habits that can save time, reduce administration, and ultimately help keep your records accurate throughout the year. So the first tip is about using a separate business bank account. So using a dedicated business bank account for all of your business income and expenditure. So even if you're a sole trader and not legally required to have a separate account, it can make a huge difference. So being able to keep business transactions separate from personal spending just makes it much easier to maintain those digital records, reconcile those transactions, and ultimately work with your accountant as well. And it also means you're not trying to identify business transactions from amongst personal purchases months later as well. Tip 2 is around connecting your business bank account to Xero. So you can connect that securely and directly with Xero using that secure bank feed. Now, this allows transactions to flow automatically into Xero rather than you having to enter those manually. It's going to reduce data entry, it's going to save you time, and ultimately help you to ensure your records remain up to date throughout the year. And I'd say that many businesses will find this as the one sort of big time-saving feature that's available within Xero. And then tip 3 is around creating records as you go. So creating digital records at the point that things happen. So if you invoice customers, create those invoices in Xero. If you incur an expense, capture the receipt using the Xero mobile app. The closer you can get to recording information when it actually happens, the easier it's going to become to maintain accurate records and, of course, stay compliant under MTD requirements. So to bring today's demonstration to life, I'm going to be using an example business throughout the session. So meet John. John runs Cook Plumbing as a sole trader. Now, alongside his plumbing business, he also owns 2 rental properties that are managed through a letting agent. Now, John isn't VAT registered, but he is mandated for making tax digital for income tax. Now, to help him prepare, John has worked with his accountant to get things set up for him correctly. John's responsibility ultimately is to keep his records digitally and keep them up to date throughout the year. His accountant has helped John to sign up for MTD for income tax with HMRC. They've also helped customise and configure the setup of Xero so that John can manage both his plumbing business and his rental property records all within one Xero subscription. John's accountant will be reviewing his records on a quarterly basis. They'll also be undertaking the preparation and submission of his quarterly updates as well. And of course, completing that final end of year tax position through the final declaration. So as we go through the demonstration, we're just going to look at how John can use Xero to do exactly those things. Okay, so let's jump into Xero now and see how John manages his day-to-day record keeping. So I'm just going to hop over into Xero right now. Okay, so we're starting off on the Xero homepage. So this is John's homepage within Xero. Now, it gives him a quick overview of his business, including his bank account balance, invoices that are awaiting payment, and other key information as well. So note here on the home screen here that as well as having his business bank account connected to Xero, there is also a further what we call a dummy bank account. And this is going to be used to capture anything that happens outside of his business bank account, but still needs to be recorded and reported to HMRC under his via his quarterly updates. So an example of this will be his rental statements. So his income from his rental properties doesn't come into his business bank account because he just uses that just for his self-employment. That will come through to a personal account, but again, we still need to make sure we're recording that, and that will come through to here. Okay, so let's now imagine that John has just completed a job for a customer, and so rather than creating an invoice outside of Xero, John's going to create that invoice directly within Xero. So I'm going to use this quick click button here, and we're going to jump straight into creating an invoice. So we can put in here the name of the customer. We've got Garden Design Company, and we can pop in a date that that invoice was issued. And then we can put in a description. I suspect John would make it a bit more detailed than this in real life. We can put in an amount. We've already got it assigned and categorized as sales, so it's an income transaction. And we can also associate that now with his self-employment. So it's income relating to Cook Plumbing. Once we've filled out the details for this invoice, we can switch to approve an email. John can actually use Xero then to securely send out this invoice to his customer. So not only can you send them out via email, you can also send them out by SMS text message as well. So let's send that out. Now, in addition to John being able to send invoices out from Xero, he can also now attach an online payment service to those invoices. So that means that on receipt of the invoice, his customer can also pay him via an instant payment. So for instance, like instant bank transfer or via credit card payment. So for a small fee, John can get paid much more quickly and doesn't have to then chase his customers for payment. Now, not only has John just created an invoice, but he's also created the digital income record as well that forms part of his MTD records. So one action here is achieving both objectives. Okay, so let's go into Xero Files now. So I'm going to hop into this drop down here and go into Files. Now, this is John's document storage zone. So John receives documents from several different sources throughout the year, and he might receive supplier invoices for plumbing materials that he's actually purchased for a job. He's also receiving rental statements from his letting agent relating to his rental properties. So rather than sort of storing paperwork in folders or searching through emails, John can utilize Xero Files to store everything digitally. So this provides a real central location for supporting records. Now there are there's three methods that John can utilise to get records and documents into Xero Files. Now one of those is via email. So if he receives any documents via email, he can simply forward them on into that using this specific email address. He can also upload files as well. So drag and drop from his downloads, or upload from his desktop as well. The other method is by utilising the Xero app to upload a photograph of a receipt. So let's just imagine for a moment that John's visited the post office to post something to a customer of his, and he's been given a paper receipt. So let's just have a look at how John can actually use the Xero app on his phone to take a photograph and upload that receipt. So here we have access to the Xero app through multi-factor authentication. Then we've got the plus sign. He's clicking on file and he's choosing to take a photo. We'll take a photo of that post office receipt and choose to upload. In addition, John can also change the name just to make it easily identifiable. So we're going to change that to post office, for instance, just so you can pick that up more easily later on. Perfect. So here we are, we've got the documents within here. So we have got that post office receipt that John's just uploaded via the app. We've also got a Screwfix invoice, which is uploaded. And finally, we've also got a letting statement as well. Now, this brings us into another tool that I'm going to show you now, and it's called Smart Document Capture, and it all sits within where we are now in Xero Files. Now, what we're going to look at first of all is how we can enter John's rental property statement to list out his income and expenditure related to those rentals. So this is a rental statement that John has already uploaded. So you can see here, if I zoom in slightly, we've got rental income amounts associated with each property, and we've also got a net off of the monthly management fee, again associated with each individual property. Now we move over to the right hand side, and what we can see here is that this is where Smart Document Capture, which is a powerful data extraction tool, is automatically pulling some information from that document and starting to create that transaction for John. So upon choosing the correct contact, so we've got the customer in this scenario is Lettings for You, and the document type is rental statement. We can see here the date has automatically been extracted from the document, and we can also confirm that how that's going to be paid. So it's going to be paid out of his out-of-pocket or dummy bank account, or in this scenario, his personal bank. We've then got a related file summary. Again, the data extraction tool has read the document and created a description of what this document is. Then we can go down to the bottom here and we can confirm the actual description and the separate line items. So we've got the monthly rental payment income amounts, and that's categorized against rental income. And that is associated with this property here. Same again for this property. And then we've got the negative figure, which is the management fees. And that's going to be associated as a expense category of letting agent fees for each of those properties. So here we are, we're landing on the net income figure, the amount that John's actually receiving. So once John has actually reviewed that information, checked everything looks correct, he can then simply create this transaction. Now that document, i.e. the letting statement, is going to be attached to a sales invoice entry, and therefore then he's actually reduced that manual data entry, and we've got that accuracy because that transaction has been created off the source document. Okay, so now we've pushed that one through into Xero, we can now look at these other two documents as well. So here we've got an example of an expense transaction that we need to create here. So this is a purchase made at Screwfix, and you can see there the total amount and actually what he's purchased. So again, we're going to say this is this time the supplier. The document type is, we're going to call it a spent money. And again, we've got the date extracted from here, and we can confirm this time the payment for that that Screwfix invoice was made from the business bank account. And again, we have got the ability to read the file summary, so it's got a full breakdown of actually what was purchased. And we can choose to, if we wanted to, have full breakdown of line items, but otherwise we can summarize that to be categorized against purchases. And once again, we need to confirm, yes, this was purchases relating to Cook Plumbing. So let's go ahead and create that transaction now. Okay, and then finally, we have the post office receipt. So again, spend money, same thing again. This time, this was paid for by personal means. And it's still relating to Cook Plumbing there. And then create transaction. Oh. Okay. So that is just an indication of how Xero files and using that powerful extraction tool can really help to lift to remove that manual entry of data. That's only going to save John time and just help maintain those accurate records. So the more he can do on the go on a daily basis, then that flow of accurate records are building up over time. Okay, so let's dive back into the home screen now. And then the final area I really wanted to show you is the bank reconciliation feature. Now, because John's bank account is connected to Xero, transactions are automatically imported. So as you can see here, I'm going into this bank here. And you can see here, there are 9 items to reconcile. So this is the list of all of the transactions that have been imported via that connected bank feed. Now on the right hand side, John simply needs to categorize those transactions and tell Xero what they actually relate to. So as I scroll down here, we can see, that Screwfix payment has popped up in the first instance, but we've already got a transaction that's been created because we've just done that through Smart Document Capture. So to reconcile that, once John's happy, all he needs to do is click on OK. Now, similarly, we've got a nice green match here. And this time it's matching off the income that's come from the customer has just paid for that invoice that he's generated. So again, we can just click on OK, and that's reconciled now. So the same method can be applied to matching and reconciling his remaining transactions. Now this time what you'll see, I haven't got any further green matches. Now this takes me on to another automation tool that happens in Xero. Now some of John's expenses happen every month. So as you can see, we've got examples here. We've got bank charges, they happen on a monthly basis. We've got some interest income, so cashback income from through his bank. We've also got safe hold storage rental, so storage space rental. So all of these are regular and reoccurring transactions. So what John doesn't want to have to spend time doing is entering in the details and saying it's this each time. So this is where bank rules can really help to come and speed up that processing. So instead of categorizing those repeatedly, John can create a bank rule. And you can create a bank rule directly off the bank reconciliation screen. Now this is what a bank rule looks like. So I've got one here set up already for safe hold self-storage. So let's have a look at the details here. So I have set up, or John has set up the rule to say that every time safe hold self-storage appears in the bank, in my bank transactions or the narrative on my bank statement line, I want you to apply these conditions. I want you to say that the description is storage rental. I want you to confirm that it should be categorized against rent, and it should be categorized against, and it's associated with my self-employment. So these conditions will apply each and every time safe hold self-storage comes up in the bank feed. Now, because those have been pre-filled out for me, then that just means that John can then click on OK once he's happy that this rule is correct. So we can just click on OK. Similarly, we might have some money that John Cook has taken out of the business, and therefore it should be categorized as drawings. So similarly, a rule could be set up for that as well. So there are a number of use cases where bank rules can really help to save time and create consistency as well, to make sure that John is always categorizing things in the same way. So okay, so once John has maintained his records throughout the quarter, he then is ready for his accountant to review that information and obviously prepare and file his quarterly updates. Now, because those records have already been captured digitally and reconciled regularly, preparing those quarterly updates becomes much easier, and it also means that his accountant can then discuss any discrepancies or errors, sort of quickly reducing that panic as the deadline for the filing update gets closer. Now I'm just going to give you a very sneak peek of what the MTD for income tax dashboard looks like from within Xero, and then also what it looks like actually submitting a quarterly report through to HMRC from within Xero. So the MTD dashboard can be found within the tax tab within Xero. And I'm just going to hop into a slightly different environment just to show that in a bit more detail. So once your Xero account has been connected to HMRC, then this will be the MTD dashboard. Now, this is not going to be ultimately relevant for everybody on the webinar today, because you might be engaged with your team at Shaw Gibbs who are going to be undertaking this work for you. But still, I just want to give you a quick glance at it. So this is the MTD dashboard. It lists out all of your obligations throughout the year, all the way through to that final declaration. In order to actually access the quarterly update once it becomes due, this is a show of the quarterly update report that will be generated to send over to HMRC via a direct connection with Xero. So there isn't the ability to drill down into this report that's prepared particularly around reviewing transactions and how they've been created, being able to pull up any discrepancies or errors with that information and be able to feed through and find out, you know, what is making up those totals as you see there on the report. But ultimately, all of the hard work in terms of the actual digital record keeping, I say all of the hard work, all of the main part of the work is really around keeping those records regularly and digitally. It's just going to mean that this becomes an outcome of really good record keeping rather than a completely separate exercise. So upon checking and making sure we've got the accuracy here is that we can actually send that report to HMRC directly from Xero. So then to close off, let's just return to talk about John for a moment. John's not an accountant, he's a plumber. His goal isn't to become a bookkeeping expert. His goal is just simply to maintain accurate digital records as he goes about running his business and managing his rental properties. So by using that separate bank account, connecting bank feeds, creating invoices digitally, capturing receipts immediately and reconciling regularly, John is doing exactly what he needs to do. His accountant is then best set up to be able to review those records, create and then question any discrepancies or errors potentially, and then preparing and filing those quarterly updates, and then of course submitting the final declaration at the end of the year. So making tax digital really works best, you know, when business owners and accountants can really work together in collaboration. So you know, the business owner records the information, the accountant can review and advise and submit, and then software like Xero just helps to connect those two. Thank you very much for listening, and I am now going to hand back to Hannah.
Thank you, Claire. Claire, we had quite a few questions come up, but Joe and Kevin have responded back to them. But one thing which did come up from Amanda just at the start of the chat, which Kevin has responded to, but just to confirm, so Amanda says, I have a rental property that I owe 50-50 with my husband. How do I record income and expenses on a 50-50 basis? So just confirmation that it is possible within Xero for that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great question, and yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And unfortunately, I wouldn't have had the time to cover it off in a demo,
No.
but to provide you assurance there is that actually you can have, particularly if it's, you know, a husband and wife jointly owned property portfolio, you can absolutely use just one Xero subscription to handle that. So if we think about the actual digital records, for instance, there's only one set of digital records, and that covers both taxpayers. So you know, there's no point in doing the same job in terms of the digital record keeping twice, is that we just do it once in Xero subscription, and then we can actually set up both taxpayers in the one subscription, and we can automatically split the income and expenditure related to those properties into the right sort of separate quarterly updates for those taxpayers.
Thank you, Claire. And yeah, we did have another question come up, which we have also covered, but I'll just mention it here just in case no one can, people aren't able to see the chat properly. But Paula asked if once invoices are recorded in Xero, do we still need to keep paper records? And just to confirm back that no, like HMRC will accept the digital copy. Once it's in Xero, you don't need to keep that paper record.
Great. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, so I mean, you absolutely can keep paper records if you want to, but you know, I think the fact that if you can utilize Xero to be that source of truth in terms of that document storage zone, it's just going to make things a lot easier to manage. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then Julian did have a question just asking, is it better to create a bank rule or a recurring bill, or doesn't it matter? Are they both one in the same?
No, they're definitely not the same, Julian. So it probably would be worth a chat with your accountant at Shaw Gibbs to kind of explain this further. But just for the purposes of today, a bank rule is just set up on reoccurring transactions, income and expenditure going in and out of the bank account, but there's not related to a purchase bill or something that's sitting in your purchase ledger, or sales ledger. So yeah, if you're already utilizing Xero, perhaps, Julian, and you're utilizing recurring bills, then if that's working for you, absolutely keep using that. Don't set up a bank rule as well on top of that, otherwise you may well duplicate the entries there.
Okay, thank you.
Claire,
Sorry, Kevin.
Sorry, Claire. Just to follow up on the 50/50 properties. Someone's, I think Jackie's just come back and said if one of those 50/50 property holders has also got self-employment which needs to be reported, how is that dealt with? If you can just run through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if we've got, so the example, we've got a husband and wife property sort of portfolio share, but then also, for instance, the husband also has self-employment, like John. Then again, that's another example of where just one Xero subscription will be relevant and will be needed, as long as there's no sort of complexities, I suppose, around keeping those things together. So yeah, absolutely fine. And there is ways and means in the background that we can that you can separate those records in terms of what's relating to the self-employment and what's relating to the property portfolio, a little bit like what I've showed you today.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of questions coming in, which is great. Caroline, we can take that offline if you want, just in terms of Caroline's been having a bit of an issue linking her Xero account. It's the error that we're aware of in terms of like the NI number is saying it's wrong. But yeah, Caroline, we can take that offline and contact you to see how we can best resolve that. HMRC currently are going to be sort of doing a tidy up because we think that there is a bit of a known issue there. So that might be resolved soon, but yeah, we can follow up on that one. Just go through that offline. Okay, yeah, and then we can probably, what I'll do is I'm just going to run through and explain how Shaw Gibbs can support you, and then we can go back in terms of the Q&A, because I think a lot of these questions are not quite Xero question specific ones. So Claire, we can leave it be for a minute, and we can come back to this. But yeah, so just in terms of if this is all new and you're wondering how can we support you, so yeah, so just to confirm, the demo that Claire was doing when she was speaking about John is listed here just in the this top box here where it says do it together. So that's one of the offerings that we can help support you with. So for example, you keep your own digital records as shown, and we would then come in, reconcile what information you've added on, we complete checks, and then we then file the return for you. If you are really happy and happy using Xero, you're currently doing it day to day anyway, then there are two further options which are a bit more geared towards, for example, doing it yourself. So we have do it together, review and file only, and that is where Shaw Gibbs, you complete all of the digital records, and you actually then go to create the return, and we would then just review what you have already created, hand over any notes, use our expertise there, and then we can help you then file the return. And then a step down for that would be the do-it-yourself offering. So that's where we are just there to support. So you're keeping all of the digital records in Xero, but if you do have any queries or need any support, then we can help you on an ad hoc basis for that. However, we appreciate that this is all new to a lot of people. So our core service offering would be we do it for you. So utilize all of the expertise here within SureGibbs. We are going to be updating the digital records for you. We're also going to be doing the reconciliations, uploads into Xero, and then we're going to be filing the return. So that really is our full package there. But yeah, so if you do have, we would like for us to assist and it hasn't already been arranged, please do reach out to your main contact. But if we do go to the next slide, we do also have a shared mailbox, which goes through the whole of SureGibbs. So yes, if you just go to the next slide. Yeah, so as you can see there, we have a dedicated email address now for MTD. So it's mtd@suregibbs.com. So if you haven't reached out to us initially, or you are a completely new client, then that's how you can get hold of us and ask for support that way as well. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We still do have quite a lot of questions coming through in the Q&A, which is absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. And we do still have some time left to run through them. On the chat, so I do think we did have one in the actual Q&A, which came in at the very start. So we don't want to leave this question out. Oh, we've actually got a few more now. So Rachel asked, do you need to do MTD if you have UK rental income but live overseas and are a tax non-resident? So are we able to answer that now, or can we go back to Rachel on this one?
I think there is already a response against that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I
think Phil's already put in there. Yeah, broadly speaking, non-residents are within MTD. There are some circumstances by which that can be delayed until next April, but we'd probably need to speak to you individually just to assess your requirements.
Great, thank you for that, Kevin. And then I've just seen we've also sent a response back to Jackie just on your question, so that's brilliant. Thank you for that. But yeah, so now we go through to the chat. Let's see where we've just left off. So we do have a question from Paul just about Euro invoices. So we start from there. So Paul's asking, do all Euro documents for a European property need to be converted? So I suppose if they're in a different language.
Yeah, so this is about foreign currency. So it depends really how those amounts come in to you, whether you have a Euro bank account actually set up. From a Xero perspective, and feel free to add any comments on your side, is that we do have a subscription type that is multi-currency. So you'll be able to set up Euro or any other foreign bank accounts with a feed into there, and to be able to use the internal sort of conversion tool to convert it into sterling for ready for reporting aspects, but also to file to MTD for income tax. But there is kind of a varied response, I suppose, in terms of you don't have to do that, but it would just mean that you'd have to convert before you enter those transactions. I don't know if Kevin or Joe, you've got anything to add to that.
I think so.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you, Claire. And then just above Paul, Shane's just asked a question, what if rentals are part limited and part personal? and how does sharing Xero work?
So ultimately, I suppose that the rent, partly owned, limited owned, well, that doesn't come under MTD for income tax. But if there is part of a portfolio, I suppose that's owned personally, and therefore actually hits the and does come into MTD for income tax, is that you can enter. It depends on the number of records that are related to. Do they relate to the whole portfolio? My feeling would be not. So you can just utilize Xero that just deal with the personally owned rental properties, and that would be very much separate to the limited company setup, particularly if that's already on Xero. So I wouldn't be trying to implement the personally owned properties into an already existing Xero. I would keep that absolutely separate.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking, Shane, of course.
Yeah. Thank you, Claire. So just underneath, we have another question which asks, so I have a property portfolio where things like insurance are paid on a group basis, where I cannot allocate this to individual properties. So how do I do this? Can we put that into Xero?
Yes, in terms from a Xero perspective, you can absolutely do this. So just bear in mind, in terms of the UK property sort of quarterly update, is actually one compiled summary report, so that there is no property level detail in that. So actually, as long as that you can make sure it's all included in that one property quarterly update, then that's fine. So, for instance, you might be assigning, not particularly giving a breakdown of the insurance across each individual property. You would just put it into one entry in the bookkeeping and just make sure that that's brought into the UK property update as a whole, rather than being broken down on a per property basis. You've kind of got different ways of doing that. You can absolutely break it down, but you don't have to.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, we have a lot of questions that actually Kevin and Joe have already gone over just on the chat. So I'm just looking down to see if we've got any which haven't come up yet.
It's probably worth saying there's been quite a lot of questions flying around in the chat. If we've tried to answer them as best we can. If we've missed any of them, we will go through the chat transcript later and just try and follow up with those. But please do make use of that email address, mtd@shoregibbs.com, to fire off any queries you've got if we haven't dealt with them. Hopefully Hannah's done a very good job of catching them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just doing a quick check, Kevin. I think we have captured the majority. But yeah, so just checking if there are any further messages that just want to come up. So Glenda has just sent one through actually. So is it compulsory to send invoices to clients if you use the secure bank feed?
Absolutely not. Glenda, you might be a business that actually doesn't send out invoices, in which case you don't need to send out invoices. So if you are not a business that sends out invoices to customers, and actually you just need to record the income as that's coming through on your bank feed, absolutely, that's absolutely fine. Again, you can use things like bank rules to automate the posting of that. So yeah. And you're absolutely fine to do that, as long as you're creating those digital records and that digital record is coming from that bank feed that you've got connected. So you're already most of the way there. It's just a case of actually categorizing it in Xero.
Something that I think would capture a couple of the questions that have been missed is to do with the amount of subscriptions that are needed for things like 50/50 property shares. Do they need separate Xero subscriptions, or can they put, say, a partnership under one subscription? And I think that was a couple of questions on here.
Yeah, it's quite a big topic because it varies, I suppose, in terms of each scenario. Might be there might be some real complexities, but as a general rule, ultimately, we want to make sure that just one Xero subscription is needed, and that to cover basis. If you have got, for instance, you've got a limited company, but you also personally rent properties, that would be an example where actually you wouldn't want to mix the two up because they're very separate. You know, you've got a limited company and this is something personal. So that would be an instance where, you know, you would definitely not want to try and do everything in one subscription. Another example would be where you've actually got a proper partnership said that, so you can only have one business structure or entity type associated with one Xero subscription. So if you're operating as a proper partnership, again, if there's anything happening outside of that, under a self-employment or UK property, and that's mandated by MTD for income tax, again, that would be another example that you definitely want to have a separate subscription. But my advice would be to get hold of your team at Shaw Gibbs, who can actually kind of work through your particular scenario and recommend the best outcome in terms of the number of subscriptions that you'll really need to make things as easy as possible for you.
Thank you. So we have just had one question come in, which mentions for existing Xero users, does the MTD allocation column only show after the link to HMRC is made? Or yeah, so when will that show? Do you have to be registered with HMRC for that to show?
No, Claire, that doesn't need to be made because the allocation column that you saw there during the demonstration is through that's been created through something called tracking categories, and that exists within Xero, but it's actually a pre-existing bookkeeping tool anyway for reporting aspects. So you can go ahead and set those tracking options up so that that allocation column shows. But again, Claire, I would recommend, if you need help with that setup process, that you do engage with your team at Shaw Gibbs, who can help you with that.
Claire, we just had a quick question about where you find the tabs to show the percentage split on properties.
Okay, yeah. So again, we're probably going into realms of a lot more detail than that I've been through today. But in terms of being able to, if it sounds like, Amanda, that you're doing everything yourself, and that you're doing the configuration and allocation, which is fine. But I will, you know, again, do get support from your accountant, which is great. So that is all found under the MTD dashboard. So when you connect your Xero account after you've signed up to MTD through HMRC, you are connecting your account, your Xero account, to HMRC. Then once you've got your MTD for income tax dashboard, there will be an option in your to-do list to say configure the setup, and that's where it is. So it's the background setup just for MTD, where you will be able to allocate what percentage ownership each taxpayer has of the property in a portfolio, for instance.
Thank you, Claire. And just finally, one question which was answered by Kevin just now, but I'll just read it out so everyone can hear it. There was a question asked if investment income counts for MTD, and just to confirm that does not apply currently.
Yeah, I think Julian's just come back on that around the final submission. Yeah, obviously investment income does need to go onto your final tax return, essentially, and there are adjustments that will need to be made between the Q4 submission and the final submission. There are a number of adjusting items that will come into that, and investment income would be one of them.
Great. Lots of engagement, lots of questions, so that's great there. But yeah, just to confirm, if we haven't answered anything, we will do a review of what's come up, and we'll get back to you via email, just on your questions if we haven't covered them. But yeah, I think we can close that there, Kevin.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I'd just like to thank Claire for that Xero presentation. Very helpful. Thanks everyone for attending. And as Hannah said, if we've got any unanswered questions, please do fire them through to the MTD mailbox, and we'll try and be proactive on anything that has been asked and we haven't answered over the next day or two. We'll try and get back to you. Thanks everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. Bye.